right. So you ever try to like focus, in a loud coffee shop or something?
Yeah.
Or read with the TV on?
Oh,
Like it feels
yeah.
like
All the time.
it's like our brains just can't handle all that information.
We are just constantly bombarded
Yeah, so how do
with
we
information.
Yeah, so how do we actually like manage to focus on anything?
Well, that's what we're going to be diving into today.
Okay.
We've got some really fascinating new neuroscience research about how our brains actually deal with distractions.
That's cool.
And, it turns out it's not just about, like, trying harder to concentrate.
Really? Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're looking at a study from Washington University in St. Louis, right?
That's right.
They published this in Nature Human Behaviour,
Yeah.
and they found that our brains have a like really clever way of dealing with all that noise.
Yeah, it's called selective suppression.
Okay.
So, what's amazing is that the brain actually learns to suppress distracting inputs. So it's not about turning up the volume on what we want to hear.
Right.
It's more like our brain is hitting the mute button
Oh.
on the stuff we want to ignore.
Okay, so it's not just about like focusing harder.
Mm-hmm.
It's about like actively ignoring.
Actively ignoring stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. Like I always wondered, like how I can tune out a whole room full of people
Yeah.
when I'm like having a conversation with a friend at a bar.
Yeah.
Maybe this research explains it.
You're spot on. Yeah.
Right.
And this is actually a pretty surprising finding. A lot of the earlier research on attention focused on like simpler tasks
Yeah.
with just one distraction at a time.
Oh, like that classic psychology experiment, right? The Stroop test, where
Exactly.
you have to say the color of a word, even if the word spells out a different color.
It's surprisingly difficult.
Yeah.
But this new research takes things a step further
Okay.
by looking at multiple distractions
Oh, wow.
happening all at once. So they designed a task where people had to identify shapes, colors, borders, and even which way something was moving,
All at the same time.
all at the same time.
Wow.
Much more like the real world, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like trying to whirl in a busy office can feel like that sometimes.
Yeah, the researchers, they even compared it to trying to follow a conversation at a crowded cocktail party.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
It's the perfect analogy.
Imagine, like, trying to focus on a single conversation in a room full of people talking.
Yeah.
It seems impossible.
It does.
But somehow our brains manage to filter out most of the noise
Yeah.
and zero in on the voices we want to hear.
So our brains are basically expert cocktail party attendees.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that the more we encounter specific distractions,
Okay.
the better we get at suppressing them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like our brains build up a personalized ignore list
Uh-huh.
based on our past experiences.
So you're telling me that, like, if someone has been talking loudly near me before,
Yeah,
I'll just, like, naturally tune them out in the future.
exactly. That's what the researchers call distraction specificity.
Okay.
So we don't just block everything out.
Right.
We selectively suppress distractions that we've encountered before,
Okay.
which actually leaves us open to new information coming in.
Oh, so I can still hear someone calling my name at that cocktail party.
Right.
Even if I've tuned out most of the other conversation.
Exactly.
So my brain's basically choosing what to ignore.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
It's really quite amazing
Yeah.
how our brains prioritize
Yeah.
what's important
All right.
based on what we've experienced before.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So to really understand how this works,
Yeah.
the researchers use something called a neural network model,
Yes.
which is a fascinating way to study the brain.
It is.
Yeah, a neural network model. I have to admit, that sounds kind of intimidating. Can you, like, break that down for us a little bit?
Sure.
What is it, and what does it tell us about how our brains work?
So it might sound complex, but it's actually a pretty cool concept.
Okay.
Imagine building a Lego version of the brain.
Okay.
Like a simplified version, of course, but just to see how all the pieces might fit together and
Right.
work as a whole.
Right.
So that's essentially what a neural network model is.
Okay.
It's a computer simulation
Oh.
of
right.
how brain cells or neurons are
Done.
connected and interact.
Okay, so it's like a virtual brain
Yeah, yeah,
that scientists can use to,
Yeah.
like, experiment and test out different ideas.
exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And in this case, the neural network model actually gave the researchers evidence for something called conflict detector units in the brain.
Conflict detectors.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
Right. Well, so think of it like having tiny referees in your brain.
Okay.
Each referee represents a different distraction.
Oh,
vying for your attention. And they're constantly arguing over which one deserves your focus.
so one referee might be shouting, "Hey, that's a loud noise, pay attention."
Right.
And another one saying, "No, wait, you've heard that noise a million times.
Right.
It's not important."
Exactly.
So it's like a constant mental tug-of-war going on in our heads.
It really is, yeah.
Wow.
And what this research suggests is that the more we encounter a specific distraction,
Okay.
the stronger that ignore signal from its corresponding referee becomes.
So we're actually training those little referees
Exactly.
to be more efficient at ignoring certain distractions.
Uh-huh.
It's like building up mental muscle.
Yeah, you can think of it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like what happens in our brains
Yeah.
when these referees are like duking it out?
So the brain ultimately weighs these conflicting signals from the referees
Okay.
and decides which one wins,
Yeah.
which one you ultimately pay attention to.
So the more we encounter a particular distraction, the stronger the ignore signal from that conflict detector unit becomes.
Right.
Okay.
So this entire process is part of what allows our brains to become incredibly efficient at filtering out the noise.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So the next time I'm in a meeting and I find myself zoning out,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Maybe my brain is just doing its job,
Exactly.
filtering out the irrelevant stuff
Yeah.
to help me focus on what's actually important.
Precisely. Your brain is constantly working behind the scenes
Yeah,
to help you navigate the world and stay focused.
it really does.
Yeah, and what's even more exciting is that this research opens up a whole new world of possibilities for
Yeah.
understanding how our brains work.
I know you mentioned the next step in their research is using MRI scans.
Right.
What will that tell us?
This is where the research gets truly groundbreaking.
Okay.
By using MRI scans, the researchers hope to pinpoint the exact location
Right.
of these conflict detector units in the brain. Imagine actually seeing those little referees in action.
Wow, that's incredible to be able to like see those specific areas of the brain
Yeah.
light up
Right.
when we're like successfully ignoring distractions.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But what does this all mean in a bigger sense? Like, what are
Yeah.
the implications of this research?
Well, the potential implications are vast.
Okay.
This research could revolutionize how we understand and treat attention disorders like ADHD.
Really?
It could lead to new therapies and strategies
Oh, wow.
to help people better manage distractions and improve their focus.
That's incredible.
Oh.
This could be a game changer for so many people.
Absolutely.
So we've learned that our brains are surprisingly good at ignoring things.
Yeah.
We're not just focusing harder.
Mm-hmm.
We're actively suppressing information
Right.
we've deemed irrelevant
That's right.
based on our past experiences.
Yeah.
But what does this mean for us in our everyday lives?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Like, is this selective suppression always a good thing?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you wonder, though, like, if we're constantly tuning things out,
Yeah.
could we, like, miss something important?
Oh, for sure.
What if my brain decides to just ignore a fire alarm?
Yeah.
Because it's, like, heard it go off accidentally before.
Right. That's a really insightful question, and it highlights the fact that this selective suppression isn't a perfect system.
Right.
Our brains are making predictions based on past experience.
Okay.
And sometimes those predictions can be wrong.
Right.
That's why it's important to be aware of our surroundings and
Mhm.
not completely rely on our brains to filter everything for us.
So it's about, like, finding that balance.
Exactly.
Letting our brains do their thing,
Yeah.
but also staying, like, aware of what's going on around us.
Uh-huh. It's about being mindful of our attention.
Right.
And that's actually something we can train ourselves to do.
Really?
Yeah. Think of it like exercising a muscle. The more we practice focusing our attention and ignoring distractions, the better we get at it.
Okay, so what are, like, some practical things we
Mhm.
can do to, like, exercise our attention muscles?
Well, the first step is being aware of your own distraction triggers.
Oh, okay.
So, what are the things that consistently pull your attention away from what you're trying to do?
Oh, for me, it's definitely social media.
Yeah.
I can get sucked into that rabbit hole for hours if I'm not careful.
Right. And what about, like, email notifications?
Oh, yeah.
That little ding,
Oh, yeah.
like a Pavlovian bell.
It is. Yeah, it is.
So, the first step is, like, minimizing those triggers.
Okay.
Put your phone on silent. Turn off those notifications.
Right.
Maybe even try, like, a social media detox.
Okay.
Create a workspace that's free from distractions.
Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right. Make it easier for your brain to focus
Yeah.
by removing the temptation altogether.
Yeah, totally.
And, something as simple as, like, changing your environment
Yeah.
can make a big difference.
Okay.
If you know you're easily distracted by noise, try working in a quieter place or using noise-canceling headphones.
I'm a big fan of like white noise
Yeah.
or like nature sounds.
That's great.
Helps me concentrate.
Yeah, there you go. It's all about finding what works for you
Right.
and being proactive about shaping your environment to
Right.
support your focus.
Okay.
The key takeaway here is that we're not just at the mercy of distractions.
Yeah.
We have more control over our attention than we might realize.
So it's empowering in a way.
It is.
Knowing that we can actually train our brains to be better at ignoring things.
Yeah.
And focusing on what matters.
Absolutely. It's about taking charge of our attention and using it as a tool to achieve our goals. Instead of letting distractions control us, we can control them.
All right, so to wrap things up, we've learned that our brains are incredibly adept at filtering out distractions.
That's right.
It's not just about brute force concentration. It's about selectively suppressing information we've encountered before.
Exactly.
And the really cool part is that we can actually train our brains
We can.
to be even better at this.
It's true.
So listeners, the next time you're in like a noisy environment or feeling overwhelmed by distractions, just take a moment to pay attention to what your brain chooses to ignore. It's pretty amazing what's happening up there.
Yeah, it really is.
And, maybe even ask yourself, knowing this, how might you approach your own work or study environment differently to like minimize distractions?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
This research really does make you think about the power of our brains.
It really does.
And the potential we have to shape our own attention.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
And that's our deep dive for today.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.